The storm arrived 3 hours after sunset, rolling over the hills like a wounded machine dragging iron across the sky. Elias Venn had seen storms on 6 planets during his years in the Terran Expeditionary Corps, but this one bothered him for reasons he could not explain. The rain struck the roof in sharp, disciplined bursts, almost like coded signals, and every few minutes the lights flickered even though the house ran on an independent fusion cell buried beneath the kitchen floor. Elias sat alone at the table, repairing an ancient service pistol he had not fired in 12 years, while a pot of soup hissed behind him with the confidence of something preparing to become inedible. He glanced at it. "You survived plasma fire on Carthos," he told himself. "You can survive vegetables." The soup responded by boiling over. Then came the sound at the door. Not a knock. A soft metallic scrape, followed by something small crying beneath the thunder. Elias froze. No one lived within 2 kilometers of his cottage, and no sane traveler crossed the northern forest during an electrical storm. He took the pistol, moved toward the entrance, and activated the wall scanner. The display showed no adult heat signature, no vehicle, no drone. Only a single warm shape resting on the porch. Elias opened the door carefully. A silver bundle lay beneath the rain shield, wrapped in fabric that shimmered as if moonlight had been woven into it. Inside was a baby. She looked almost human, with pale skin, dark lashes, and wide violet eyes that reflected the porch lamps with an unnatural clarity. Yet her ears were long and elegantly pointed, extending through openings in the silver cloth. She stared up at Elias, stopped crying, and reached for his beard. "Absolutely not," Elias whispered. The baby grabbed it anyway. He lifted her awkwardly, supporting her with the rigid concentration of a man handling unexploded ordnance. Beneath the blanket, something small and golden slid onto the porch. It was a pendant shaped like a many-pointed star, its center containing a black crystal that pulsed with faint blue light. Elias had seen royal crests, military insignias, smuggler marks, and cult symbols across half the known systems. He recognized none of this. The moment his fingers touched it, the crystal projected a web of alien symbols into the air. A woman's face appeared briefly within the light, beautiful, severe, and human-like except for the same long ears as the child. The message dissolved before Elias could understand a word. Somewhere beyond the trees, a low mechanical hum rose above the storm. Elias carried the baby inside, locked the door, and switched off every external light. He placed her on the sofa and moved to the window. Between the trees, something shaped like a narrow black seed hovered several meters above the ground. Its surface flickered, struggling to remain invisible. A stealth craft. Damaged. Alien. Elias watched as its hull split open with a silent flash. A moment later, the entire machine collapsed inward, compressing itself into a glowing sphere smaller than his fist. The sphere vanished with a sound like air being sucked through metal teeth. No wreckage remained. No evidence. Only a circle of scorched earth and trees bent away from the blast. Elias looked back at the baby. She had somehow escaped the blanket and was now trying to eat the corner of a military cushion. "I assume you cannot explain any of this," he said. She smiled and made a bubbling sound. "Excellent. I always preferred operations without useful intelligence." He searched the silver fabric and found no identification, no transmitter, and no medical device. The child seemed healthy, though a scan from his old field kit produced results that made little sense. Her bones contained a flexible metallic lattice. Her blood carried microscopic structures that behaved like machines. Her body temperature changed whenever she became frightened, and the scanner insisted her heart possessed 3 separate rhythms. Elias ran the test twice, then tapped the device against the table. Either you are impossible, he told her, or this machine is finally as retired as I am. The baby sneezed. Every light in the house flashed bright white. The fusion cell shut down for 2 seconds, restarted, and displayed a power increase of 17%. Elias stared at the ceiling. The baby laughed. By dawn, the storm had moved east, leaving the forest steaming beneath a gray sky. Elias had spent the night attempting to feed the child. She rejected milk, water, fruit paste, and one emergency ration marked suitable for all carbon-based life. She finally accepted warm broth, then immediately poured most of it down his shirt. A successful diplomatic exchange, Elias muttered. Both parties are disappointed. He sat beside her as she slept, the royal pendant resting in his palm. Whoever had sent her had chosen his home deliberately. Perhaps they knew his military record. Perhaps they knew how remote the cottage was. Or perhaps someone had simply made the most irresponsible delivery in galactic history. He considered contacting the authorities, but the memory of the self-destructing craft stopped him. Whoever had placed the child here feared being followed, and if someone was hunting her, an official database would reveal her location within minutes. Elias closed his fingers around the pendant. Outside, far beyond the clouds, a tiny point of light moved against the stars, too fast to be a satellite. The baby opened her violet eyes and watched it through the window. For one strange second, she looked less like an infant and more like someone waiting to be found. Elias pulled the curtain shut. "All right," he said quietly. "You can stay until I learn who left you here." She reached for his beard again. He sighed and leaned closer. "But we need rules." 10 years passed without anyone descending from the sky to claim the child, which Elias considered both a blessing and an increasingly suspicious administrative delay. He named her Lyra after the constellation visible above the cottage on the night she arrived, though she insisted at the age of 6 that the name sounded too elegant for someone who once ate a button. Elias reminded her that she had eaten 3 buttons. Lyra grew into a bright, restless girl with pale skin, violet eyes, and long, graceful ears that made secrecy difficult. In town, she wore knitted caps, wide headbands, or carefully arranged hair. She hated all 3. "Humans have very inconvenient heads," she complained one morning as Elias adjusted her cap. "Your ears are too short, your eyes are too dull, and none of you can hear the refrigerator complaining." Elias paused. "The refrigerator complains?" "Constantly. It says you open the door too much." "Traitor." Their life was quiet, but never ordinary. Lyra learned languages after hearing them once. At 7, she repaired the cottage's water purifier using a spoon, copper wire, and a toy engine. At 8, she built a floating lamp that followed Elias from room to room and insulted him whenever he forgot where he left his glasses. At 9, she modified an agricultural drone so efficiently that it harvested every vegetable in the garden, uprooted 2 fence posts, and attempted to classify the neighbor's dog as livestock. Elias spent years teaching her to hide what she could do. He told the townspeople she was his niece, orphaned during a transport accident. Few questioned a retired soldier who preferred solitude, especially one whose expression suggested that additional questions might require paperwork. Yet Lyra hated lying. She wanted to attend school, make friends, and walk through town without hiding her ears beneath wool even in summer. Elias understood, but every time he considered telling her the truth, he remembered the black stealth craft collapsing into nothing among the trees. Some nights, he still dreamed of the face projected from the pendant, the long-eared woman with sorrow hidden beneath royal composure. The pendant remained locked inside a shielded metal case under the floorboards. Elias checked it once each month, For years, it had been silent. Then, on the evening of Lyra's 10th birthday, it began to pulse. Elias discovered it while preparing a cake that leaned visibly to one side. Blue light seeped through the floorboards in slow, steady waves. Lyra entered the kitchen carrying a small mechanical bird she had built from discarded parts. The bird flapped twice, said, "Structural failure detected," and pointed one metal wing at the cake. "It is not a failure," Elias said. "It is asymmetrical. It is escaping the plate." "That is ambition," Lyra laughed, but her smile faded when another blue pulse spread across the floor. Elias moved quickly, pulled up the hidden panel, and removed the case. The pendant inside was warm. Its black crystal had become transparent, revealing lines of light turning within it like miniature stars. Lyra stared at the royal symbol for a long moment. "That belongs to me," she whispered. Elias felt the old soldier inside him awaken, cold and alert. "How do you know?" "I don't." She touched the pendant before he could stop her. The cottage vanished beneath a storm of light. A holographic map unfolded through the room, extending beyond the walls in layers of glowing planets, hyperspace routes, and rotating symbols. At its center burned a distant golden world, surrounded by 7 moons. Lyra stood motionless, her face illuminated by the stars. The map changed. A female voice spoke in an alien language, and Lyra answered without thinking. The words came from her softly, naturally, as though remembered from a dream. Elias understood none of them, but the pendant responded. A beam of energy passed through the roof and shot into the night sky. He grabbed the device and forced it back into the case. The hologram collapsed. Silence returned, broken only by the cake sliding completely off the plate. Lyra looked down at it. "You were right," she said faintly. "Ambition." Elias did not laugh. He crossed to the window and scanned the heavens. At first there was nothing except the familiar stars. Then one point of light disappeared. Another followed. Not clouds. Something vast was moving between Earth and the sky. His old military receiver, unused for more than a decade, crackled on the shelf. A coded emergency signal repeated across every defense frequency. Objects had entered the outer system. Hundreds of them. Perhaps thousands. Lyra came beside him, suddenly looking younger than she had moments before. "Are they coming because of me?" Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. He wanted to lie, but she had lived beneath enough lies already. "Yes," he said. Above the dark forest, the first enormous shadow emerged from hyperspace, silent and impossible, blotting out a section of the stars. Then another appeared behind it, and another, until the night sky seemed crowded with ships. Lyra watched them with tears gathering in her violet eyes, but beneath her fear was something else. Recognition. Far below the floor, the pendant continued pulsing inside its case, broadcasting a message into the darkness. The lost child had been found. By sunrise, the sky no longer belonged to Earth. Colossal vessels hung above the atmosphere in silent formations, their dark hulls catching the light of the sun and bending it into pale halos. Some were shaped like spears, others like vast crescent moons, and one enormous command ship stretched across the horizon like a city torn from another world. Every screen on the planet showed the same impossible images. Governments issued emergency broadcasts. Military satellites turned toward the fleet. Civilian networks collapsed beneath rumors, prayers, arguments, and several million badly timed jokes about unpaid taxes finally attracting extraterrestrial attention. Elias ignored all of it. He sealed the cottage's windows, activated the old defensive field beneath the property, and placed 3 weapons on the kitchen table. Lyra watched him from the doorway, still wearing her birthday sweater. "Are those necessary?" she asked. "No," Elias said, checking the charge on a plasma rifle. "That is why I brought 3. That answer makes no sense." Military tradition. The emergency receiver crackled with overlapping transmissions. Earth's orbital defense stations had locked onto the alien ships, but the fleet had not fired. Instead, it released thousands of glowing objects that spread through the upper atmosphere like silver seeds. Elias studied the tactical display. "Drones," he said. "Scouts. Or sensors. Or invitations. Invitations do not usually arrive in military formation." Lyra folded her arms. "Maybe their culture is dramatic." Elias looked at the sky filling with starships. "That would explain the entrance." A deep vibration passed through the ground. Dust trembled from the ceiling beams. Outside, the silver objects stopped moving and arranged themselves into a perfect geometric web around the planet. Then every electronic device in the cottage activated at once. The refrigerator displayed alien symbols. The floating lamp Lyra had built began circling the room in panic. The mechanical bird on the shelf shouted, "Unknown authority detected," before throwing itself behind a bowl. A female voice emerged from the receiver, calm and powerful, speaking in the same language Lyra had used the night before. Lyra went pale. "What is she saying?" Elias asked. She listened, her long ears shifting beneath her hair. "She says the fleet comes in peace. She asks Earth not to fire. She says they are searching for someone stolen from the imperial bloodline." Elias glanced at her. "Does she give a name?" Lyra hesitated. "A title. First daughter of the 7 moons." The room seemed to grow smaller around them. Elias opened the shielded case. The pendant was blazing now, projecting the royal symbol against the ceiling. Lyra approached it slowly. "I have seen that symbol before," she whispered. "In dreams. A hall with golden walls. A woman singing near a window." Elias wanted to tell her that dreams were unreliable, but the words died when the pendant released another hologram. The same woman appeared above the table, older than in the first message, though no less commanding. Her silver-white hair fell over armor engraved with lines of moving light. Her long ears were decorated with delicate chains, and grief rested in her violet eyes like something she had carried for years. Lyra stepped closer. "She looks like me." "You look like her," Elias said quietly. Across the hologram, the woman spoke again. This time the pendant translated into a rough, mechanical voice. "To the guardian of my daughter, remain where you are. I am coming." The message ended. Elias stared at the empty air. "I dislike instructions from strangers." Lyra looked toward the ceiling, where shadows of the fleet darkened the morning light. "She may be my mother. That does not make her less of a stranger." Above Earth, the command ship opened along its lower hull. A smaller vessel descended, surrounded by 6 sleek fighters. Human jets rose to intercept, but invisible force fields gently pushed them aside without causing damage. The alien craft crossed the clouds and moved directly toward the northern forest. Elias watched its path on the receiver. It was coming toward the cottage. Lyra stood beside him, trying to appear brave, though her hands trembled. "What happens if she wants to take me?" Elias tightened the strap of his old combat armor. "Then she explains herself." "And if you do not like the explanation?" "Then we discuss it." Lyra looked at the weapons. "With 3 rifles?" "I like persuasive discussions." Despite herself, she smiled. The descending ship appeared beyond the trees, smooth and silver, its engines making no sound. Wind flattened the grass as it settled in the clearing. A ramp unfolded from its side. Tall figures in luminous armor emerged first, each carrying curved energy weapons. Then the woman from the hologram stepped into the morning light. She stopped when she saw Lyra standing beside Elias. For 10 long seconds, the ruler of an interstellar empire forgot her soldiers, her fleet, and the frightened world beneath her ships. Her composure broke. Tears filled her eyes. "Seralia," she breathed. Lyra stiffened, as though the name had touched something buried deep inside her. The queen took one trembling step forward. Elias raised his rifle. "That is close enough." Every royal guard aimed at him instantly. Lyra sighed. This is already becoming a very bad family reunion. For several seconds, no one moved. The queen stood at the foot of the ramp with tears bright in her violet eyes. Elias held the plasma rifle against his shoulder, and 12 royal guards aimed weapons capable of turning the cottage into a memory. Lyra remained between them, looking from one side to the other with the exhausted expression of a child who had somehow become responsible for adult behavior. "Perhaps," she said carefully, "everyone could lower the devices designed to make holes in people." No one obeyed. "That was more of a suggestion than a royal command," she added. The queen recovered first. She raised one hand and her guards immediately lowered their curved rifles. Elias did not. "Your caution honors you," the queen said. Her voice was calmer now, though grief still trembled beneath it. "But I have crossed 9 sectors and lost thousands searching for my daughter. I will not harm the man who kept her alive." "Good," Elias replied. "I am very attached to being unharmed." Lyra glanced at him. "You hide it well." The queen stepped forward alone. Her armor was silver and white, shaped from living metal that shifted subtly with each movement. Thin lines of golden light ran across its surface like flowing veins. Up close, she looked even more like Lyra. The same pale skin, the same long, elegant ears, the same eyes, though the queen's carried years of sorrow that Lyra had not yet learned to understand. "Her name is Queen Vaela," the queen said, "first heir to the throne of 7 moons." Lyra touched the pendant at her chest. "My name is Lyra." Pain crossed the queen's face, but she bowed her head. "Then Lyra is the name of the child you became. I will not take it from you." Elias lowered the rifle slightly, though not enough to make anyone comfortable. "Prove who you are." One of the guards stiffened at his tone, but the queen only removed a narrow circlet from her wrist. It unfolded into a ring of floating crystal fragments. She placed the pendant within it. Light filled the clearing. A holographic chamber appeared around them, transparent, yet astonishingly real. Golden walls rose between the trees. Stars drifted beyond high windows. In the center stood a younger queen, holding an infant with long ears and violet eyes. She was singing softly. The baby reached for the same silver chain, now hanging around Lyra's neck. Then the image changed. Alarms flashed red. Explosions shook the palace. Armored figures rushed through the corridor as the queen pressed the child into the arms of a wounded officer. "Take her beyond the imperial maps," the recorded queen ordered. "Do not tell me where. If I know, they can tear the knowledge from me." The officer bowed, blood running down one side of his face. "She will return when the traitors are gone." The vision dissolved. Lyra stood frozen, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. The queen reached toward her, then stopped before touching her. "The traitors were not gone," she said. "They captured worlds, poisoned members of the court, and hunted every vessel that escaped the capital. For 10 years, I did not know whether you were alive." Elias looked at the burned clearing where the stealth pod had vanished a decade earlier. "The officer brought her here." "Commander Theron," the queen whispered. My oldest friend. A guard activated a wrist display. Blue particles formed the commander's face, matching the man in the recording. His ship disappeared near this system 10 Earth years ago, the guard said. No remains were found. There were none, Elias replied. His craft destroyed itself. The Queen closed her eyes briefly. Then he completed his final duty. Lyra wiped her face with her sleeve. Did he know Elias? No, Elias said, which means he either chose my house by accident or had terrible judgment. The Queen studied him. Your military records were stored in an abandoned colonial archive. Commander Theron accessed it shortly before entering Earth's atmosphere. He chose a soldier who had survived impossible missions, rejected political power, and disappeared into a forest. Elias frowned. That sounds much more impressive than the real story. I was tired of meetings. A faint laugh escaped the Queen, surprising everyone, including herself. Lyra looked between them. So he left me with Elias because he was brave. Brave, capable, and difficult to locate, the Queen said. Elias nodded. Finally, an accurate assessment. The moment of warmth ended when every royal guard's armor flashed crimson. The Queen's expression hardened. A tactical hologram appeared above the clearing, showing the Imperial fleet surrounding Earth. Beyond it, faint red points were emerging from hyperspace, one after another, multiplying with terrifying speed. Majesty, a guard said. Unidentified warships have breached the outer perimeter. The Queen stared at the growing formation. Not unidentified. She turned toward Lyra, and the sorrow in her eyes became fear. They followed us. Elias raised the rifle again, this time toward the sky. Then I suppose the family reunion has been extended. Lyra swallowed. Are the new guests friendly? The first distant explosion lit the morning clouds. Elias checked the charge on his weapon. No, he said, but they may still complain about the cake. The first enemy vessels appeared as red fractures in the sky, tearing open hyperspace above the western horizon. They were smaller than the Queen's ships, but they moved with predatory precision, spreading into attack formations before the dimensional scars behind them had fully closed. Earth's clouds flashed beneath distant weapons fire. The sound arrived seconds later, as a low thunder that rattled the cottage windows and sent Lyra's mechanical bird diving into a cooking pot. Excellent hiding place, Elias said. The bird's metal head rose above the rim. Survival probability improved by 4%. I admire the optimism. The Queen turned toward her guards. Her sorrow vanished beneath the disciplined calm of a ruler, accustomed to giving orders while worlds burned. Raise the planetary shield. No enemy fire reaches the surface. A guard hesitated. Majesty, protecting the entire planet will drain the fleet's primary cores. Then drain them. Golden light spread across the heavens. Thousands of Imperial drones linked together in orbit, weaving an energy lattice around Earth. The shield became visible for an instant, a vast glowing sphere curving beyond the clouds. Enemy plasma struck it in violent crimson bursts, each impact shaking the air like a giant fist against glass. Lyra stared upward. They came for me. The Queen faced her. They came because they fear what you may become. That sounds dramatic, Elias said. Children usually become noisy teenagers, not strategic threats. The Queen did not smile. Lyra carries the blood key of the Vaela dynasty. It is not merely royal ancestry. Her body contains a living quantum pattern created thousands of years ago. Only she can awaken the Aegis crown. The crown was built to defend the old empire, she continued. It can disable fleets across entire systems, close hyperspace routes, and control the ancient defense network. My enemies believed Seralia died before she could inherit the key. Elias looked at Lyra. And now they know she did not. A violent tremor passed through the ground. One enemy ship had breached the orbital line and entered the atmosphere trailing fire. Imperial fighters pursued it through the clouds. The Queen's guards moved toward Lyra, forming a protective circle. We must return to the command vessel. No, Elias said. The Queen turned sharply. This location is no longer safe. Neither is your ship. They expect you to take her there. She is my daughter, and she is standing in my garden while two armies argue over who gets to protect her. Lyra raised one hand. Technically, no one has asked what I want. Everyone fell silent. She looked at the Queen, then at Elias. I do not want Earth attacked. I do not want anyone dying because of me, and I definitely do not want to be carried onto a ship like luggage. You are not luggage, Elias said. You once put me in a supply crate during a town inspection. It had ventilation. The Queen glanced between them, visibly struggling with the unfamiliar rhythm of their arguments. What do you propose? Elias activated an old military console hidden beneath the porch. A map of the surrounding forest appeared, revealing underground tunnels, abandoned defense bunkers, and one concealed launch chamber beneath the hills. I retired from active service, he said, but I neglected to return several pieces of equipment. One guard stared at the map. That installation is Terran military property. It was scheduled for demolition. Was it demolished? I disagreed with the schedule. The ground split open 200 meters from the cottage. Trees slid aside as a buried hangar rose from beneath the forest floor. Inside rested an angular human assault craft, scarred from old campaigns but still armed. Its engines awakened with a deep blue glow. The Queen studied Elias. You hid a warship beneath your home? It improves the property value. Another alarm sounded. Enemy dropships had penetrated the shield before it fully stabilized. Black shapes fell through the clouds, descending toward the forest. The Queen's expression hardened. They are not trying to conquer Earth. They are sending retrieval teams. Elias handed Lyra a compact shield generator. Stay between us. She accepted it, then looked offended. I built a better one last year. You built a device that trapped me in the pantry for 6 hours. It protected you. From dinner. The first enemy troops emerged among the trees in dark adaptive armor, their bodies flickering in and out of visibility. The royal guards opened fire, bright arcs of energy cutting through the rain-soaked air. Elias fired from the porch, each shot precise and economical. Lyra crouched behind the stone wall until she noticed the enemy armor adjusting to the guards' weapons. They're learning the frequency, she shouted. The Queen looked toward her. Can you disrupt it? Lyra pulled the mechanical bird from the pot, tore open its chest panel, and connected it to the shield generator. Maybe. The bird turned its head. This modification is unauthorized. You live in a teapot, Lyra replied. Your authority is limited. A pulse burst from the device. Every enemy soldier became visible at once, their camouflage collapsing in sparks. The guards drove them back into the trees. The Queen stared at Lyra with astonishment and pride. Elias merely nodded. She does that. Above them, the enemy command ship entered the atmosphere, enormous and black, pushing the clouds apart around its hull. A voice thundered across every receiver, translated by the pendant at Lyra's throat. Surrender the blood key, and Earth will be spared. Elias looked at the Queen. The Queen looked at Lyra. Lyra tightened her grip on the improvised device. They could have asked more politely. Elias stepped toward the waiting assault craft as fire began falling from the sky. "Good," he said. "Then we agree negotiations have failed." The assault craft launched from beneath the forest as the enemy command ship descended through the clouds. Its old engine screamed with enough force to flatten the grass around the hidden hangar, and Elias smiled faintly when the cockpit lights flickered but remained alive. The Queen sat beside him in silver armor, visibly unconvinced by the amount of exposed wiring. Lyra occupied the rear seat between two royal guards, holding her improvised shield device and the mechanical bird. "Is this vessel safe?" the Queen asked. "It survived 3 wars." "That was not my question. It is the answer I prefer." Enemy fighters broke away from the black command ship and rushed toward them. Elias rolled the assault craft beneath the first volley, diving between columns of red plasma. The Queen's fleet fought above them in immense golden formations, while Earth's orbital defenses fired from below, filling the atmosphere with intersecting lines of light. Lyra stared through the canopy. "There are too many." "There are always too many," Elias said. "Otherwise, military history would be much shorter." The Queen activated the weapons console. Alien symbols spread across the human controls as her armor linked with the craft. "Your targeting system is primitive. It is 12 years old. It appears older than your civilization. It has character." She fired. A brilliant beam cut through 3 enemy fighters at once. Elias glanced at her. "You may keep insulting it." The enemy command ship opened along its underside, releasing swarms of adaptive drones. They moved like a dark cloud, changing shape as they crossed the sky. The royal fighters tried to intercept, but the drones divided around every attack and reassembled behind them. Lyra leaned forward. "They are sharing one mind." The Queen looked back. "How do you know?" "I can hear them." A thin, electronic whisper had begun filling Lyra's thoughts, thousands of signals repeating the same command. "Capture the blood key alive." She pressed her hands against her ears, but the sound came from inside her skull. The pendant at her throat burned with sudden heat. Images flooded her mind. 7 moons above a golden world, ancient machines sleeping within hollow planets, lines of energy connecting entire star systems. Somewhere far beyond Earth, the Aegis crown was responding to her fear. The craft shook violently. An enemy blast tore through the rear stabilizer, sending them spinning toward the black command ship. "We are falling!" one guard shouted. Elias fought the controls. "I had noticed." The mechanical bird flapped uselessly against Lyra's chest. "Impact probability, 92%. "Can you say something helpful?" Lyra asked. "Good luck." Elias redirected all remaining power into the forward shields. The craft struck the command ship's outer hull, punched through a maintenance barrier, and skidded across a vast metallic bay in a storm of sparks. It stopped against a column with smoke pouring from both engines. The Queen stepped from the wreckage and drew a curved energy blade. "Your vessel has character." Elias pulled a rifle from beneath the seat. "It also has no wings now." Enemy soldiers surrounded the bay, their armor shifting between shadow and steel. At their center stood a tall commander with pale eyes and long black armor that moved like liquid. "The lost heir," he said, staring at Lyra. 10 years, hidden among animals. Elias raised the rifle. "Careful. Earth has very sensitive animals." The commander smiled. "You cannot protect her. The crown will awaken, and when it does, she will belong to whoever controls her mind." Lyra stepped forward before anyone could stop her. "No," she said, "it will belong to no one." The pendant opened like a mechanical flower. Blue light poured across the bay. Every screen on the ship changed at once, displaying the 7 ancient moons of the Vaela Empire. Deep inside Lyra's body, The metallic lattice in her bones began resonating with a signal older than recorded history. The enemy commander ordered his soldiers to fire. The Queen moved in front of Lyra. Elias moved beside the Queen, but the weapons never discharged. Across the bay, rifles shut down. Drones collapsed from the air. The command ship's engines dimmed as a wave of invisible energy passed through it and continued outward into the battle. One by one, enemy fighters lost power. Then, imperial ships. Then, every orbital weapon around Earth. For a terrible second, the entire battlefield became silent. Lyra stood surrounded by blue light, her violet eyes filled with moving stars. Through the pendant, she could feel the Aegis crown waiting across the galaxy. It offered her control over fleets, gates, weapons, and worlds. All she had to do was command it. The enemy commander dropped to one knee, not in loyalty, but terror. "She has awakened it," he whispered. Lyra looked at the powerless armies drifting above Earth. Her voice trembled, but it carried through every ship and receiver. "No one fires again." The crown answered. Across thousands of kilometers, weapon cores permanently locked themselves. Targeting systems erased hostile commands. Hyperspace engines folded inward, trapping every attacking vessel in place without destroying a single one. The Queen stared at her daughter in awe. Elias lowered his rifle. That was efficient. Lyra's knees weakened as the light faded. He caught her before she fell. "I did not hurt them," she whispered. "No," Elias said. "You only frightened 2 empires and disabled half the technology in orbit." The mechanical bird climbed onto her shoulder. "Structural failure detected," it announced. Lyra managed a tired smile. "This time, it means the war." For the first time since the fleets had appeared above Earth, the sky was silent. Thousands of warships drifted powerless beyond the atmosphere, their weapons sealed by the Aegis crown, and their engines trapped inside folded fields of light. The enemy commander remained kneeling on the floor of his own command bay, staring at Lyra as though a child had just reached into the laws of the universe and politely rearranged them. Lyra rested against Elias while the blue glow faded from her eyes. "Did I stop them?" "You stopped everyone," he said. "Including us." The Queen examined the dead controls around them. "Our transport cannot fly." Elias looked toward the smoking wreck of his assault craft. "Mine can." One of the royal guards stared at the craft's missing wings. Elias sighed. "With sufficient optimism." The mechanical bird tilted its head. "Optimism unavailable." Negotiations began inside the enemy command ship because no vessel in orbit could move and no weapon could fire. The attacking officers expected imprisonment or execution. Instead, Lyra demanded that every prisoner, soldier, and damaged crew member receive medical aid. The Queen watched her daughter speak before admirals and generals without hiding behind Elias or lowering her eyes. The enemy commander finally revealed the truth. The rebellion had survived by convincing entire systems that the royal family would use the crown to rule through fear. For 10 years, he had hunted Lyra because he believed controlling her was the only way to prevent the Queen from controlling everyone else. "You murdered loyal officers and attacked an innocent world," the Queen said. "And you guarded a weapon capable of silencing galaxies," he replied. Lyra stepped between them. Then both sides were afraid of what the other might do. The commander looked at her. "And what will you do?" Lyra touched the pendant. The crown stirred in distant space, waiting for her command. She felt its 7 moon-sized stations, its sleeping machines, its pathways through gravity and time. It could make her the most powerful ruler ever born. She closed her hand around the pendant. I will make sure no one owns it, she said. Across the galaxy, the Crown obeyed. Its command codes divided into 3 living quantum keys, one bound to Lyra, one to the Queen, and one transmitted to a council of independent worlds. No single ruler could activate the network again. Its offensive systems were erased while its shields and rescue gates remained. The enemy commander bowed his head, not in defeat, but acceptance. 3 days later, the fleets regained limited power under Lyra's restrictions. Damaged ships were repaired in Earth orbit. Human engineers worked beside alien technicians and quickly discovered that advanced civilizations also misplaced tools, argued over instructions, and blamed software when nothing functioned. Earth's governments agreed to peace talks with the Seven Moons Empire. In exchange for defending the planet, the Queen offered medical technology, clean energy systems, and access to carefully controlled hyperspace routes. The rebellion surrendered its weapons and became part of a new interstellar assembly. Commander Theron was honored in both empires. A memorial beacon was placed above the forest where his stealth craft had vanished. It projected his name among the stars each night, along with a final message recovered from the pendant. She deserves a life before she inherits a duty. The Queen read those words in silence. Later, she stood with Elias and Lyra outside the repaired cottage. The garden was burned, the porch leaned badly, and the birthday cake still rested where it had fallen days earlier. The Queen studied it. "Is that food?" "Legally, yes," Elias said. Lyra smiled. It had ambition. The Queen knelt before her daughter. "The Empire needs its heir, but I will not command you to leave the only home you remember." Lyra looked toward the immense royal vessel above the clouds, then back at the cottage where she had grown up. "I want to know my people," she said, "and my real name. But Elias is my father." The Queen's eyes softened. "Then he will come with us." Elias folded his arms. "I own a house. We can return you whenever you wish. I have vegetables. We command ships that cross star systems. The vegetables are difficult." Lyra took one of his hands and one of the Queen's. "We can live in both places." Elias looked down at her. 10 years earlier, she had arrived helpless beneath a storm. Now she had ended a war without taking a life, and changed the laws of an ancient empire. He had spent a decade protecting her from the galaxy. At last, he understood that his task had never been to hide her forever. It had been to help her become someone who could face it. "One condition," he said. The Queen waited. "No royal meetings before breakfast." "That may be impossible." "Then the Empire is not ready for me." Lyra laughed, and after a moment, the Queen did too. Weeks later, the 3 of them departed Earth aboard a small diplomatic vessel built from both human and alien technology. The mechanical bird stood proudly at the navigation console, despite having no qualifications whatsoever. As the ship entered hyperspace, Earth became a blue light behind them, while the golden world of 7 moons appeared ahead. Lyra stood between her mother and father, no longer an abandoned child, no longer a hidden heir, but the bridge between 2 worlds. The bird studied the glowing route. "Unknown destination," it announced. Lyra smiled at the stars unfolding before them. "Not unknown," she said. "Home."